Hey there, I'm Ruben at Lime Green Training, and we're just going to go through two of the types of FISA generators that I supply with all Lime Green learning material at the moment. So let's have a look at the first one. This one is the type that comes with our compliance insurer, but also other manuals. So you start by opening the FISA Generator, which is an Excel document. The FISA Generator has got some Visual Basic coding that allows it to generate a unique FISA, in this case that many unique FISAs. It does this by drawing from a question bank. The question bank is of course populated for you. As you can see, it's a fair amount of work. But what is happening here is there are various categories and subcategories, and within those there are two versions of, say, each question here. That's why they are banded rows. And it'll randomly select one of those two questions. So there's a much bigger question bank than there is for the final test, and that's how we get the massive variety. So let's run it. Ensure your macros are enabled, and let's go. Press generate. You get your FISA generated, and you can just simply copy this table out. So in this case, it is 50 written questions. We've got a question, a hint, and the answer. A space for the learner's answer. So we're going to open up the learner's test, and this template is as QCTO wants it, so don't embellish it, don't put logos or anything like that on it. These pink boxes I've given here for guidance, but once you've read them, you simply delete the box. Alright, so we've got our house rules and everything like that. We've given example data because this type of FISA, it wants the learner to work off some kind of scenarios. So we've given the scenarios, and the learner can read that scenario and answer the questions in the FISA based on that. We're not going to go through every single bit of this actual course, we're just demonstrating how the generator works. So now that you've copied the FISA that was generated, you simply paste it in, and from here you can work on your line spacing and pagination as you see fit. But the FISA has now been generated and pasted in, and the table is complete. Exactly 50 questions, the amount of marks, and the learner can fill their answer in. But it's not good enough to just have the FISA generate, the FISA, the test. You also need the rubric. QCTO wants to see the rubric, and they want to see it in a certain format. So what we're going to do is, okay, so I'm going to take that same FISA I generated earlier on, and on the other tab there is a rubric. So we're going to copy this out. Rubric is the same amount of lines. And here we go, paste in. Your rubric is now pasted. Here's your headings. So you can go through the document afterwards and edit your headings and formatting and all of that. But the rubric is now here. This is exactly how QCTO wants it. They want the question, the expected answer, the competent outcome, not yet competent outcome, the marking guide, and then here is a box for you to mark it competent or not yet competent. And that's it. That's as simple as it is to generate a unique FISA using the Lime Green FISA Generator. Again, this is an Excel document, so it works on software you already have. The randomization means that you get huge variety, and this is key because QCTO have been telling training providers to recall learners they trained a year ago and retrain them and reassess them, and of course that's absurd. That's absurd. It's never going to happen. You're going to have real big problems trying to do that, especially if those are paying clients. So this is the simpler version of the generator, and let's go through the other version of the generator while we're here. I'm just going to close this up, and let's do the other one. So that's the basic generator that does a written answer for a written. They give you a question and you want a written answer. So the other one is the practical generator that has got a slightly different format. These passwords are to protect the intellectual property of Lime Green. You're supplied with a password when you purchase this material. Passwords are unfortunately necessary. There seems to be a lot of attempts to steal the unique IP and high quality IP that we supply here. Okay, great. So the next one is the practical generator. So in this one it's slightly different. We've got some scenarios, and then each scenario has its own set of steps. I'm not going to go into how the programming works, but we mark columns is true to say if we're using that column or not, so that the generator is more versatile. Okay, great. So this one produces 32,000 unique tests. Right, so let's go. Generate. It is generated, and this one gives you a question and then what to do, your answer. You're giving these in steps and the marks for each step. So as you can see, it's different because there's one question and multiple steps below that. So let's copy this generated FISA out. Okay, and we're going to open the template that's made to receive that FISA. So we're going to open this template again. Don't embellish, just keep the template as it is. Here we've given two versions of example data so that it's easier to randomize. Practical tests are a little bit harder to deal with in this way, but we want to make sure it's unique and there's enough variety for QCTO to not say you're repeating the same test. So 37,000, that's more FISAs than QCTO has in their entire existence ever quality assured. So this FISA generator has certainly got high enough. It doesn't have a quadrillion, but it has more than enough variety. So the learner will read two different versions, whichever one the question requires, and answer based on that. Once you've generated the learner FISA, you'll drop it into the table. The table is exactly the correct size, so you don't have to sit and fiddle with that. What I would, however, do is just merge these rows. You can merge those cells. So that'll be a bit easier, maybe bold them, but anyway, do with your pagination and your spacing, but you have a full learner FISA for a practical test where they answer, and there's a hint column here as well. Sometimes the hints are repeated, sometimes they're not. The hint just makes the question a bit easier to answer. When it's not a multiple choice question and people aren't selecting from an exact range of answers, then they actually need to answer. You kind of want to direct them so that you get the outcome you want. It's not just about knowing the answer, it's also about directing that answer so it's easier for marking for the assessor and the moderator. Okay, so that's the FISA is now pasted in. The learner, like I say, you can just fix your pagination and spacing, but the learner will then answer. Okay, then once that's done, you of course also need the marking rubric. QCTO requires it, and they require it in this format. So here it also generated a marking rubric. So copy out the rubric, open the template that was specifically designed to accept that specific rubric, and page through the example data. Here's your table, paste it into the table, and there's your marking rubric in exactly the format QCTO wants it. Again, you can just merge these cells and sort out your pagination and line spacing. But I mean, that's a 30-second job. So the FISA is now pasted. Again, it's fully compliant. It's in the way QCTO wants it, and that's the FISA generator. So those are two types. There's also a multiple choice one. We don't need to do that here because that's much simpler. But you just hit a button and it randomizes from multiple choice. The QCTO Skills Programs that these tests are for, they don't ban multiple choice. They kind of imply that it must be a written test, and by a written test, I feel like it needs to be an answer and a question and a written answer. Okay, so those are the two FISA generators. Those are two of the three FISA generators supplied with lime green learning material. I just want to stress that if you are buying learning material and you do not have some way to generate near infinite amount of unique FISAs, then you are buying an incomplete product. You are going to run into trouble trying to manually shuffle, three FISAs of the questions, and it's not going to work. Or maybe it's going to work, but it's going to be a heck of a lot of trouble if you're doing that for every cohort. And I just want to stress this again, QCTO wants you to, for every cohort, every class you train, they want there to be a unique test that has never been seen again. As they say, cannot be the same test verbatim. And I think they want a bit more variety than swapping questions, 8 and 9 around. They want some significant variety, which is what this generator does. Great. So that generator is supplied with all of lime green learning material. Hop over to our online shop at limegreentraining.co.za, and then the shop page, and go and grab any of our material. All the QCTO Online programs have got this FISA generator with it. Great. Thanks and goodbye.